Hi, and welcome to the Dentro Talent Podcast. I'm here with Neil Catton, and we are going to be discussing the role of the CIO and CTO and the evolution of the C-suite in tech. Neil, welcome. How are you?
Not so bad, Rick. Thanks. It's interesting times we live in, as they say, at the moment.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some challenges and some changes out there at the moment. So I think it'd be quite important for you just to give a bit of a brief history, bit of background on you and your career and your journey to where you are today, just so that everybody kind of understands your path to that C-suite.
Yeah, sure. It's safe to say it hasn't been a traditional path for me to get from where I started to where I am today. I didn't go the academic route. I got offered a potential for a role as a computer operator back in a long time ago.
Yeah,
And at the time, it was money or education, and I decided I wanted the money. It was probably one of the best decisions I've ever made because that organization gave me the fundamentals of everything that I've then built my career around.
okay,
I learned from people who had basically invented a lot of stuff, and built a lot of the standards at the time. And we're going back, Oracle version 3 territories, really long time ago.
yeah,
So I learned base principles. There was no shortcuts. Um, I kind of then moved around quite a lot because I wanted a lot more experience. So I traveled the world, different countries, did different roles. Some of them I went to, actually find the role. Some of them I was approached about roles, and they're
yeah,
all very technologically led, and all were in career progressions. And safe to say, I wasn't afraid to actually take on anything. Somebody approached me about something I hadn't done. Yeah, I'll figure it out.
yeah.
In kind of the last kind of few years of my career, it has been a lot more in the senior roles around strategy, engagements, moving into helping organizations become the best they can be. And that's meant I've had to learn a lot more skills than base technology skills. It is, engagement, it is culture, it is understanding organizations, very much a wider set of requirements I've had to do.
Yeah.
And I think I keep going back to my original where I started. Those foundations gave me the tools to learn how to learn. There's no such thing as can't. It's like you just something you don't
Yeah,
know today. So go
yeah.
and figure it out, reach out and learn. So it's been I've had ups and downs. I've taken step back in order to
Hmm.
step forward. I've stepped left, I've stepped right. And sometimes, there isn't a go into a company and you've got a clear, career path from A to B to C to D to E. Great if
Yeah,
you can. But in the modern world, it isn't. You've got twists and turns of do this, do that, build upon it, but always meandering, as it were, towards what your goal, what your target, and they're not stopping there, because if you become complacent, it can bite you, and it can be detrimental to whoever you're working for.
yeah.
So, very different role.
Yeah, do you? There's something that you mentioned in there which I think is really interesting, and I think, in my opinion, it's something that's changed over the course of the last, I don't know, probably 10 years, maybe five, but over the last 10 years, definitely. Um, you mentioned if there was something you hadn't done, you would take that challenge on and you would go and figure it out, and you'd kind of learn and grow as an individual. Do you think there's less opportunity to do that moving into a new business now at a senior level because companies and businesses want people who have worn that t-shirt before, and they've delivered, or they've worked in that sector, it might be, or the requirements list now for a CTO or a CIO is must have this, must have that, must have delivered this, must have done that. So there's less opportunity for people to potentially do some of the things that you've done, which is, yeah, I don't know how to do that, but I'm going to learn how to do it, and then it's, it becomes part of your makeup.
Yeah, it's something I actually see quite a lot of, and I think that there's two sides to the story around that. Organizations do want people at senior levels to come in and help them, and the lessons are learned. I think sometimes it's too focused, and people with
Yeah,
a broader view of things can bring different experiences. If you hire the same people who've been doing the same things, you basically it's confirmation bias. So where's the differentiation? So those who've had much more of a wider career can look at, okay, so could I bring things in health to retail? Could I bring things in transportation to other aspects of things? So I do see some limitations that organizations basically want somebody been there, done that, and literally they're cut from the same cloth.
yeah,
It does restrict the from an individual's perspective to where do you grow if you're doing the same things you've always been doing. How do you challenge yourself? But I also think that because of the explosion of different types of technology and different types of capabilities and the expectations of companies, it's a lot harder to do that experimentation, which I had the opportunity to do.
yeah,
There is time available, but when in the past, hype cycle was in years from something coming out to production, so you had the time. Now it's
yeah,
in days and minutes. So how can you take the time to figure it out? So I
yeah,
get both sides of it. But I think organizations need to consider experience as a holistic and
yeah,
not just as a silo. If you are going to stay within the silo, your business is not going to do anything else on that, stay there. But if you want evolutionary growth, you've got to think of people who may be able to bring different life experiences, work experiences, culture experiences to ask why are you doing that?
yeah. And there's a stat somewhere out there, and I'm probably going to get it wrong, but I think you can learn an industry in 3 months, or you can pick up a particular um, sector, regulation, or whatever it might be in 3 months. So, in the grand scheme of things, is that is that too long? Is that too long to wait? And if somebody's bringing new ideas from different sectors to the table, then
Mm.
potentially you get more out of that in the long run.
Um, I think it depends on the industry and the individual. And something controversial I'll say is that most industry, if you boil it down, some of the fundamentals are the same. What you have is the contextualization of what they do. So if you can get to the base and foundations, then start to learn what you need to learn, and then apply the two on top of each other so that you then understand the nuances as to what that industry is, you can become a lot more productive. When I'm hiring teams into new organizations, even if they've worked in the sector before, I give them basically set them aside and say, you have this much time. Do you want to find out who you work for? I'm not going to give you any work. Go and find out who you work for, because I guarantee you don't know who you work for.
Yeah,
And lo and behold, they'll come back and go, thank you. Because now I understand why a company is doing something, who they are, what is the expectation, rather than all of a sudden day one, there's a job. Um,
yeah,
Allowing people to explore who they are, that's a really good example of a people-centric organization. And that will allow them to bridge that gap a lot quicker around the things they don't know, and again remove the confirmation bias around, well, I'm going to do this. Well, it doesn't quite work.
yeah,
Um, but it's evolving. Again, expectations, companies, they want immediate results, and sometimes that just can't happen.
yeah, yeah. No, and I think there is a time and a place for that experience. But hopefully businesses in general have a broader view of the landscape, and can go out and look at people from different sectors. So the other point that you mentioned in your opening kind of part was you moved into roles which were more strategic. They were more about engagement and engaging people. So is that one of the key evolutions of the C-level technologist, whether it be the CTO, CIO, or whatever? And how else has the role shaped over uh, the last 5-10 years,
Yeah,
in your
yeah,
opinion?
yeah. So I think this is where there's a legacy overhang of terminology. Chief technology officer. It's all about technology. It's not. It's about achieving a business vision. It's about engaging with the business. Say, what do you want to do? Right, let me help you get there. Not just about the latest and greatest server that you would put in place. That's where the kind of the roles started. It was all tech centric, so we had to put in data centers, and it was all about building the latest tech in the data centers. Now it's not. It's that outcomes, it's that benefits, it's the how do you actually instantiate that vision that a founder may have. So the kind of the role of what those individuals need to do is wider, and that's my experience of engaging when I'm writing and developing strategies. It's great. I can write a tech strategy, but unless I know the fundamental business why, it's tech for tech's sake.
Yeah,
So people who are looking at aspirationally into these kind of roles, be it a CIO, CTO, CDO, whatever it may be, it's great, your capabilities, your foundations, and all of the stuff within your realm, but you have to look at what's outside of that, the drivers, the outcomes, the benefits, because you are part of that organizational experience. And when you don't achieve the outcomes, you've got to take the accountability for your part in that. But when you do achieve the outcomes, likewise, you take the kudos for helping a
yeah,
business do that. But I think and there was in Gartner, there's the enterprise architecture handbook, I think it is. There's a very nice picture around how enterprise architecture is moving to digital architecture and business architecture, of how it's evolving from building tech solutions to building business outcome driven solutions. And that is where, me personally, I see the C-suite of technologists and information people aiming for and actually being the people who are helping drive that.
yeah, yeah. And from a hiring perspective, and from my perspective, it absolutely backs that up. In that, you know, at a senior level, it's not now about necessarily the detail of the technology. It's about the type of business challenges that those people have overcome and lived through and delivered technology strategies that align to that, rather than just, okay, yeah, like you said, we need to move a
Yeah.
data center, we need to implement this particular piece of technology, um, and the evolution, I think, to put it kind of succinctly, is it's gone from a technologist to a business leader who happens to understand technology. And I think that is, to my mind, that's been kind of the biggest evolution in board level or C level technology roles.
Oh, absolutely. If you look at some of the big transformation things, certainly stuff I've been involved in, um, the goal is to make the business a success. And what you don't want to be is seen as the blocker to that. Who is, well, I'm going to do it this way. Kind of think around the previous conversation we're having around multi-cloud migration, one from another. That's a business decision. That is a technology implementation. Why do you want cloud? What's the benefits of cloud? What's it going to mean for my business, my experience, my people, my culture? Those are the decision matrix that C-suite should be looking at. And then if you get into a beauty parade of one over another, then the technology lead has to have enough to question, is this going to achieve what I need it to do? And not just
Yeah,
the business, but the technology side as well. Is it future proof? Is it viable? Is it scalable? Is it secure? Is it all of the things which we have to think about for me, the senior technologists, so the ones who ask the questions and not necessarily have all the answers, but know what to ask.
Yeah.
And then make a fundamental decision around that's what we are going to do, and this is how we're going to achieve it. And be prepared to take a left turn if it doesn't work. Don't think that once you made a decision, it's a final decision. You've got to be an adaptive leader, and certainly in technology, because of the speed of change, what we do today is irrelevant tomorrow.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think, again, going back a period in time, it wasn't necessarily a board level position, was it? And now, every business is fundamentally a tech business because it permeates into every single element of any business, whether it's generating sales or whether it's customer experience or whatever that might be, because everything is digitized now. There's nowhere to hide from technology. So the role has become even more critical and even more important, and needs a seat at the table.
It does, but I'm actually going to kind of contradict you a bit on the every organization is kind of a tech organization kind of viewpoints. That established organizations where they've got a very heavy tech presence already, they're actually going the other way. And if I look at the work in telcos, communication service providers, once the network is in, once the cables are in, once the spectrum's in, and all of those kind of bits that you've got your network and communications. So what? So they are actually pivoting to digital service providers. Is what can you do with what we've already got? So what are the services? What are the things which we as individuals would use the network for? So, the Netflix of the world, the making calls, doing text, doing this. That is around how do you provide services which your customers and consumers will then use based on the technology you've got. What I will say is organizations can't ignore the potential of technology. It's a tool, and it has to be part of your holistic solutions. In the public sector, there's a big drive for digitization of lots of things, but they also have to manage the reality of not everybody has access to technology. So bricks and mortars, paper, you've still got to have that viewpoint as to the services we are delivering. How do we deliver them for the benefit of everybody who is engaging with us? So it's looking at technology as it's always been, another tool to enable business to do what it is they do. The pendulum is swinging more towards tech-centric, and actually, again, challenge future is going to be data-centric, and we are on that tipping point of it's all about data, and data will actually be the foundations of most of the transformation programs.
Yeah. So in your opinion, having seen and lived through the evolution of the role over again, last 5 years or so, where are we today, and looking forward? You've already mentioned data, but what's the what are going to be the kind of critical success factors for somebody making a step up to C-level or a successful CIO in a business?
Yeah. So where we are at the moment, I think there is there is a growing need for people who have the wider experience within organisations, so that they can actually start to bring more lessons learned to things. But organisations do have to be a lot more flexible around the people they kind of bring in and their expectations of those individuals. Having a war and peace job description of everything, of every kind of technology and future proofing and innovation and no, it's not going to work. So got to be realistic around the people you're bringing in for the purpose you're bringing them in. The future, I think we're going to go through a bit of an evolution of drivers around kind of the C-suite, around who we need. We're already seeing an explosion of different kinds of C somethings, and everything is becoming a C of something, a C of something. So
Yeah.
it's going to prove to be very challenging around the governance framework for these kind of things. Who does what? Who's accountable for what? Who makes decisions? You can't have a decision by committee C-suite. It doesn't kind of work.
Yeah.
The role of technology, it's still going to be there because fundamentally it's the things which run stuff. But as I said, more and more it's going to be that business centric, the knowing how to achieve business outcomes. There are going to be a lot more challenges coming for the people who are in these kind of roles. We're already seeing a lot of the cognitive technologies bringing new challenges, deep fakes, lots of new fraud popping up. The cyber landscape is exploding. What we're going to do around convergence, AR, VR, virtual worlds, real worlds. I was doing some work around, the future of policing, and it comes down to fundamentally things like, what's the definition of criminality? What is the definition of a border? If somebody destroys your avatar, so what? Is that a criminal activity? Lots of changes that the senior people are going to have to consider what they're doing, how they're doing it, and what are the consequences. And more there will be negative business consequences if they get things wrong. And in the past, organizations could weather some of those things. Today's world, it'll only take one and brand trust is gone, and all of a sudden your business then starts to be massively impacted by something you didn't account for. So I think we're going to see a new breed of C people coming through who are going to blur the lines between CIO, CDO, CTO, cyber, business, sustainability. They're going to be a mix of those kind of things, and it'll be more outcome driven rather than SLAs and KPIs. It'll be about business outcomes and achievements, that thing which we've been aspiring to for the seat at the table for.
Yeah. And to pick up on your on the really great point that you made around the boundaries and avatars. If somebody destroys an avatar, using that as the example, are we in danger of not really? Are we in danger of not making good decisions around that type of scenario because we don't yet understand it, and probably going to need to go through different iterations and different legislation that will evolve over time as the technology evolves and as the people who are managing that technology gain more knowledge, gain more experience, and start to really kind of understand what it means.
Yeah. There's no answers to how people are using the emerging technologies, but there is work going on. It's not we're not knee jerking around things. There is people realise that there's good actors and there's bad actors. There's deliberate bad actors and inadvertent bad actors, and it's actually understanding what those things are. How people will use whatever is put up. You've got to look at what that is over time and be reactive and responsive around it. You can put guardrails and gateways in that can help you manage these things. It's going to be your response to things and how quickly you respond to it and the transparency. Where we are going to see quite a lot of challenge is in the deliberate bad actors, the fraudulent activities, one of my things I've done work in quite past is, child grooming. That's gone into a whole different level with emerging technologies.
Yeah.
But how do you prove it? Where do you get the evidence? How do you capture the evidence? How do you provide that in a way that people who, maybe prosecuting the case can understand it and actually realize exactly what it is? Those are challenges in the past. you could produce a photograph. You could produce some evidence. Now, in a digital world of the metas and other virtual worlds, what is proof? What is evidence? How do you capture that? How do you make sure that it's appropriate for criminal prosecutions? Again, if you look at jurisdictional boundaries, if you're living in the virtual world, where is the legality of boundary? How do you determine those kind of things are going to be decisions which people who implement the technology for organizations are going to have to draw their virtual landscapes to say, this is within our boundaries, this is the legislation we will do. They have to have a seat at the table for those policymakers, because again, we have a tendency to knee-jerk and lock the barn door after the horse has gone and lock down legislation, and all of a sudden we're trying to retrospectively bolt things on. I'm having some interesting online debates around autonomous vehicles and new legislation. It's going to be like that. It's like, we don't know what is going to happen until it's there. So technologists are going to have to become these kind of theoretical people as well, as to let's think beyond. Let's explore the boundaries. We may not appear, but we need to know how are we going to treat it should it happen. So again, that wider experience of thinking beyond, I'm just putting a server in or I'm putting a new website up. Those are easy things. It's how people use stuff.
Okay, and so to bring it back to, because that's my fault, we digress slightly there. To bring it back to kind of the evolution and where the CIO CTO role is headed, you believe that there's going to be, I guess, less distinction in those particular roles, and I guess kind of as we do now, you then have a specialist division and somebody who heads that specialism up, whether it be data, whether it be AI, whether it be cybersecurity.
Yeah. I think there's. I'm seeing a lot of these new role titles being created, and they're subsets of what the business is trying to do. So you need that collaboration at the top table, but you can't you can't do them in isolation. So if you've got sustainability, okay, topic of the time, a lot of the things that we're trying to do, it's going to be around how we do things. What is the technology we're using? How are we using it? How do we become more efficient? So who would make the decision? The sustainability lead or the technology lead? They have to come together at some point and agree what it looks like. But wouldn't it make more sense that when you're actually approaching technology, you look at it from a sustainability lens as well, and actually have so my sustainability strategy around the technology I'm going to do is this. My ethical strategy is going to be this. My responsible strategy will be this. My commercial strategy will be this. It's not to say there won't be still a need for people who may actually be more more specialized in understanding what those things are. But do they need to make the decisions that the wider organization will work towards? Or are they going to be setting the kind of the this is what it means for us direction, and then allowing the kind of the CTI, CIOs to become those more holistic roles with guardrails around it and models that they can then deploy. But you're right, they will need teams underneath them that appreciate that. And again, I think I would see it's not going to be one team for various bits and pieces. Again, you've got to have the viewpoints and that mix of skills in your teams so that everybody appreciates why you're doing something. Why are we doing this sustainability thing? It's compromising what I'm doing as well. Here's why. And actually, for me, I'd actually, if you understand it from the top, give the problem down and say, right, we need to do this, right? Help us achieve what we need to do. So don't try and be the command and control of all decisions for everything. Give the problem to the teams. Give the problem to those within your organization. Say, help. How do we do this? How do we achieve our goals and not deliver to an SLA and KPI and just become slaves to that kind of model?
Yeah, and it comes back to one of the first points that you made, which is engagement. You know, the good leaders, whether you're in tech or whether you're not, engage people and give them challenges to solve and keep them engaged, keep them interested, and that's ultimately how you build successful teams, successful businesses, reduce increase retention and reduce attrition, and ultimately, you know, stand a much better chance of achieving the business goals that you've set out.
Yeah, and actually a good way of doing that is with mentoring, because everybody talks about mentor programs and it's top down, all
Yeah,
peer to peer. It's kind of that thing. Actually, enlightened organizations do the reverse mentoring because, um, I'll freely admit, I am not a avid user of all of the social media platforms and technology. It's like I have no personal use for it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
how can I define a usability strategy for all of those things out of the top of my head by Googling stuff?
yeah,
No, I want people who I can, they can reverse mentor me in, Neil, you've been an idiot, right? This is how we use these kind of things. Um, and the power of that two-way mentorship is become more important. You know, C-suite, we tend to be, we go up the stack as we age, right? We don't start at the top and work our way down. It'd
yeah,
be nice if we did, um, but we need the people who are also coming around who are actually using these kind of the things in modern life that we may not be using, and actually learn from them different ways, different thinking, different challenges. Because I guarantee they will ask "Why are you doing that? We don't do it that way. This is what we do," and all of a sudden it changes your entire viewpoints of things.
yeah,
So, as a leader, if you are not prepared for somebody to tell you you're being stupid and here's what we need to do, then you're going to fail.
yeah. And again, to bring it back to the point that we made earlier about evolution, and also bringing people with different skill sets to the table, and again, the best leaders will evolve, adapt, and change over time as the role changes, as the demands change, and also as the technology changes. So I think that's kind of, that's what the role needs to be now and in the future.
It does, and I think it comes down to the fundamental. It's about experience. It's knowing good and bad. It's knowing right and wrong. It's knowing the kind of avenues not to pursue or to pursue. It's not necessarily having the answer. It's having the
Yeah,
tool. It's the my personal view is like education. It's not about learning by rote. It's learning how to learn. All right. If you understand that, then you can actually go and figure things out, and that's what for me experience is. The like don't know something, I'll go find it out. I'll ask somebody. I'll reach out. But I will know when something is wrong, or I'll have an inkling something is wrong, and it's that experience that leaders need to bring, not the command and control. It's taking people aside and saying, "Are you really sure we should be doing that? Explain it to me," and understanding. And then it might be, and this is where I have a challenge with, where you see roles looking at hands-on of things. The C-suite shouldn't do that, because you're
yeah,
supposed to be the arbiters, the people you go to when you need a decision made. You can't mark your own homework. So you are the people who goes, right, decision is we're going to do this, but that's based on the experience, and that's where you need that openness in your leadership style. And it will be more and more evolutionary, where you've got to look to your teams. Again, because of the plethora of technologies, you can't keep up with it.
yeah,
So delegate, let them look at it, let them have time to go and play and explore and come up with the smart, cool ideas. You be the people who go, okay, right, how do we make that work?
yeah,
What do we need to add on to top of that to make sure it's not going to break my business? How do we make that a business success? Cool idea, rubbish implementation. That's the last thing you need.
yeah. Perfect. Well, I think that brings us to a nice conclusion on the evolution of, I guess, tech leaders and the evolution of the C-level technologists. So, Neil, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for taking the time to have a chat.
No worries, Rick. It's been a pleasure again. And yeah, happy to chat.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thanks.